Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Sports in the Mitten, powered by Mr. Spots in Ann Arbor. I'm your host, Adam Biggers. Apologize for the delay. I've been busy slash lazy, more lazy lately. Kind of trying to figure out the next steps and all that. So I do apologize for that. Meant to go live Monday. We will talk about a lot of things have happened since I've done a show. I don't want to rehash too many old topics, but we'll get into some. I do want to talk about Michigan State over Penn State. That was one of the more surprising wins, I think, and now Michigan State looks primed to highest ranked team in the Big Ten in the playoff rankings. So that's who'd have thunk it, right? At this point in the year, if you would have told me Michigan State would be looked at as possibly the best team in the Big Ten, going into Game 10, I would tell you that you're crazy. So we'll talk about that a little bit, of course. I want to talk about Michigan's offensive line. I think that and the offense in general, I think there's a lot there. And I'll field your questions. And real quick, I'm going to tweet the live link right now. Anybody watch that Ric Flair? I fell asleep last night, and I meant to go watch the Ric Flair 30 for 30 with some friends over at Brownie's house. Anybody catch that? I'm not really big into WWE or WWF, pro wrestling kind of stuff, but I mean, Ric Flair was kind of one of those guys who just transcended the sport. It was just like a pop icon, kind of like Hulk Hogan, those guys. Yeah, they were wrestlers, but at the same time, they were just like public celebrities. And Ric Flair is a guy who's across the board. I mean, I'll use rap music for an example. A lot of like rappers have and continue to make Ric Flair references throughout their music. So just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that. I've seen some trailers. I imagine it's pretty good. I've read. All right, so I'll get into the questions, and of course I want to talk about Roy Halladay, guys. What tragic news yesterday. Only 40 years old, 5 years older than me, and I feel like I grew up. I mean, he's not that much older than me, but he's one of those guys that I do remember. I don't want to say growing up because his career wasn't until the late 90s, but through my late teen years and throughout my 20s, Roy was one of the premier pitchers in baseball. So wearing a Phillies cap only because he threw a perfect game and a no-hitter with the Phillies in 2010. Perfect game came against Miami in May of 2010, and then his no-hitter was against the Giants in the 2010 NLDS. And you guys know that I collect memorabilia. Roy's always on display, but yeah, it's tragic news. An 8-time All-Star, a guy who was in the running for the Cy Young. He was like top 5 vote getter for the Cy Young. I think like 7 or 8 times. Just an incredible pitcher, and everything that I've read and about him over the years, it's one of those guys who's just a really good person too. So, I don't know Roy. I don't know if any of you guys do, but horrible news, and obviously thoughts go out to his family. So let's start out the live chat. We'll get into Michigan football as usual. Chris Hawk says, Biggers. Frank Lucas says, good to see you, Adam. Thanks for watching, Frank. Damian Kuhn, way to go with the lazy stuff. Hey, man, I'm trying to. I don't know what it's like to be unemployed, so obviously looking for work, but at the same time, I feel like it's giving me a little bit of extra time to do stuff around the house. So I have probably the cleanest basement and the cleanest garage in my neighborhood. I'll just say that right now. Anyway, Eric313 shows you how bad Penn State really is. I mean, Eric313. Penn State beat Michigan 42-13. I mean, Penn State's a good team. Penn State beat Ohio State, or almost beat Ohio State. So I mean, Penn State's not a bad team. Chris Hawk says it's about time. Oh, just kidding, not kidding. Damian Kuhn, missed your last couple days. Hey guys, I appreciate it. Frank Lucas says this offense is starting to look like a Michigan offense. I'll go through the rest of the comments and then real quick, and then Frank, I'll start with yours because I want to talk about that. Jeremy Turner says big. What's up, Jeremy? Chris Hawk. All right, so let's get into it. Frank Lucas, guys, we're going to start with this, and then Chris Hawk made a comment on Twitter, so Chris, remind me, your topic will be next. Frank says the offense is starting to look like a Michigan offense. I agree. And here's the thing, and I think this kind of wraps into what Chris is talking about on Twitter. We're seeing an offensive line that's actually effective, not just being good. We're seeing an offensive line. I mean, just look at against Minnesota. I mean, we could look at Karan Higdon and Rutgers because, I mean, that's where it really got started, right? And then Brandon didn't get touched, 10 of 14. Brandon got knocked down a couple times, reacted well, but this offensive line just really, and it's not just the left side anymore. You know, we've talked about this a lot earlier in the year that, I mean, they were running the ball successfully, and Michigan statistically has ran the ball successfully all year long. We don't know who it's going to be. It might be Ty Isaac, might be Chris Evans, might be Karan Higdon. You know, that was kind of the thoughts earlier in the year. Now we know who it's going to be. It's going to be Karan Higdon, and then it's going to be somebody. And it's Chris Evans. You know, both of those guys, Big Ten Offensive Players of the Week, counted for almost 400 yards. I mean, just incredible day on the ground. So, yeah, the offense, I mean, across the board. And I think even with Cesar Ruiz, if you remember that play, because Cesar said it had never happened to him. I forgot how many yards it was for. It was one of Cron's bigger runs. It wasn't a touchdown run, but he actually knocked down Cesar. And what happened was Cesar was the right guard, and he's pulling behind the line to set the block. He's behind Mason Cole, left tackle, to help set that block for Karan Higdon. And Karan Higdon ends up running him over. So Karan Higdon's running with some power. I saw somebody tweet something yesterday as far as Karan Higdon has like 40 some fewer carries than Saquon Barkley, and he's got like 50 some fewer yards. So, and he's got one more touchdown or two more touchdowns, 10-8, something like that. So I'm not saying Karan Saquon, but I'm saying Karan Higdon is having a hell of a year, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I mean, I think the better the offensive line is, the better the run game is going to be. And we've seen this 2 weeks in a row. We've seen really steady quarterback play from Brandon Peters. Nothing, you know, to write home about or be overly impressed with, but, you know, Minnesota game wasn't it wasn't a bad game for him, but, I mean, it wasn't like, I mean, that's why I was saying temper expectations a little bit because that was against Rutgers, but Brandon, with steady quarterback play and an offensive line that's actually, you know, it's playing pretty well. And I remember, you know, a couple guys have said this, and I think Patrick Kugler, Cesar Ruiz mentioned it too. He said that it wasn't, you know, we all looked at it as the offensive line was just struggling. It was bad, you know, there was a lot of problems on the right side. And there were some issues on the right side, but he says they were always just one little thing away. Whether it's, you know, going through your block for 5 seconds or going through it for the extra, you know, going 6 seconds, that kind of stuff. And that's what they were referencing. So Michigan's finishing better. I imagine the offensive line's just playing with more confidence. And when you have, you know, a quarterback who can make some throws for you and you have running backs that are running the ball well, I imagine it makes everybody's job a lot easier. So, Frank, to your comment, yes, it is looking like a Michigan offense. Eric313 says Michigan will beat Wisconsin and Ohio State. We'll see. Frank Lucas, after what Iowa did to Ohio, do you think we'll win that game? I've always looked at that game as Ohio State wins, and I'm relying heavily on history. Unless Ohio State falls apart, I mean, I don't know. I want to see what Michigan State does to Ohio State, but I still look at that as a game that Michigan will lose. Jeremy Turner, do you like Big Crit's new album? I haven't heard it. I've heard a little bit of them, Jeremy. I've been listening to a lot of Young Dolph for, I don't know, probably like the past year. Like, I heard him on mixtapes and stuff a little bit, but I've really gotten into Young Dolph. And then I like this Metro Boomin mixtape. It has Future and 21 Savage, and those are usually two guys that I'm not really into. I like Future a lot for batting practice. We listened to a lot of Future this past summer for batting practice. Makes you, I don't care who you are. Future is going to listen to Stick Talk, and that's going to make you want to hit a baseball. I don't care who you are. So, all right. That's my thoughts on the matter. Eric313 said, I would like to see Peters air it out a little more. Chris Hawk, Michigan will split the Wisconsin-Ohio State series. And Chris, to that, I'd say there's probably a better chance of beating Wisconsin. We'll win will win one or the other, probably beat Wisconsin. Okay, I should read before I get into it. The OSU curse will live another year, but next year, watch out. Eric313 says almost doesn't count. Eric313, Ruiz will be the truth in years to come. Kid looks like he has a very high ceiling. I gotta tell you this really quick too, Eric. You talk to guys, you could gauge their personalities, and I knew from the get-go, if you guys go back and watch the video from the spring, and I even wrote about it then, and then they were mentioning Cesar is too deep. Cesar Ruiz is a guy that I can't see failing at all. Not only does he have the athletic ability, but as far as his learning, comprehension, offensive line's complicated. It's not just, okay, be big, go up there and block and use your strength. There's so many different blocking concepts. There's so many, I've never been an offensive lineman. But Steven Spinellis, and I'll use Steven as an example real quick. He's a really smart guy. And Jim Harbaugh has been saying that all year long. And I think that it helps when you have just that really good intelligence. And I'm not saying that they're smarter than other guys. I mean, players have already said this, that Steven, is one of the smartest on the team. Guys have said Cesar. So, I mean, I think when you combine that really great intelligence with ability, you can't help but succeed. And Cesar Ruiz understands football. Cesar Ruiz has the body to play football. Obviously, he's practiced at 4 or 5 positions, every position on the offensive line but left tackle. So, I mean, he's versatile, he's smart, he's strong. Yeah, there were a couple, he admitted, there were a couple mistakes during that Minnesota game. But, I mean, I look at Minnesota had a pretty good defense statistically, especially earlier in the season, had one of the better run defenses. So you take in, you consider all the factors, his first start, night game, delay, all of that stuff. I mean, I think Cesar Ruiz played fine. And yeah, I agree. Very high ceiling for Cesar. He is one of the most intelligent players at Michigan that I can tell. And I've interviewed just, all kinds of guys. And Cesar really impressed me, even going back to the spring. Chris Hawk says, Twitter comment is Michigan needs to concentrate on running the ball and limit a bunch of passes except for the occasional play action short passes to the big play, big guy tight ends. I want to highlight Sean McCune because who didn't like that tight end screen? I thought that was an excellent play call. Excellent. And Sean's had 3 catches in the past 3 games consecutively. 3 against Penn State, only 11 yards. He had 3 for 31 against Rutgers. He had 3 for 30 with a long of 20 and a touchdown against Minnesota. Sean McCune, and guys, we talked about Sean during camp, and a lot of people were expecting, Ty Wheatley. He was on the Mackey watch list, preseason Mackey watch list, and I mean, nobody was really talking about Sean McCune until just that last little bit, and I happened to stumble across some info, I think with probably about a week left in camp, that Sean was indeed the number 1 tight end. And I caught a little bit of flack on that, Twitter. Some people didn't believe me. Some people questioned it. But it's true. Believe it. We've seen it. And I wrote about that, Chris, actually not that long ago. Because I thought, and a lot of people now are, okay, Brandon Peters. Don't forget, John O'Korn, I think, did a good job because look at the circumstances for John. At least I think what he did for the offense in particular was really get things going with the tight ends. At least that's it. Maybe it was a coincidence, I don't know. But it seemed like with John in there, tight ends got a little bit more work. And that was something that I think we all expected to see. We were a little bit more from the tight ends this year. So it's taken Michigan's offense way too long this season to get it together, but at the same time, and I've made this point several other times, tell me another team with this many offensive problems up until this point, and at that time Michigan was 5-1 and had like 14 offensive touchdowns, or 15, 11 rushing and 4 passing, and I said, tell me another team that would have won 5 games with these offensive problems. So things are coming along. I think it's a combination of the play calling is working. I don't know if it's necessarily a change in the play calling. It's just working. Execution is there. Michigan is executing plays. Frank Lucas says Peters took the hit you wanted him to take. Yeah, Frank. And again, not like I was like, man, I just want to see Peters get nailed. But it was from it was from the viewpoint of I want to see how a quarterback reacts. I mean, we saw Wilton get nailed a few times last year. That UCF game, everybody was pointing out his toughness. I mean, John was sacked like 14 or 15 times this year, and he kept going. So, I mean, yeah, it is. It's a quality I think that you have to have as a quarterback. You have to be able to get up after you get nailed, and Brandon did that. So, yes, good point, Frank. That was something I did want to see. And it's those type of things that I think are good measures of a quarterback other than just the stats, right? I mean, it's those his vocal leadership, being able to command an offense, that's important to me. How he reacts after he gets hit, that's important to me. Yeah, the stats are a byproduct, I think, of the confidence in command with the offense and his toughness. Demario Vaughn says a win is a win. I don't care if it's North Dakota State. Right. And here's something else, too. I mean, there are people, okay, Brandon Peters might not have the most impressive stats. Michigan's winning with him. And that was the same case with when John O'Korn was the quarterback. Michigan was winning with him. I don't think Brandon is going to be asked to go in and light up the world. I think he's asked to go in there and manage it. And guys, there's a slight chance Wilton Speight might return. Jim Harbaugh said it. I wrote about this about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Don't sweep them under the rug. And I'm not saying, again, I don't have any inside info on this. I'm not saying that Wilton Speight is going to play, but I would not, at some point this year, I wouldn't bet against it, though. Would not bet against it. Demario Vaughn says, without warning, a straight fire. Jeremy Turner says, check it out. It's grown folks music. I'll check it out. Big Crit, didn't he do, I want to say that I heard him on like a mixtape with like Gucci Mane. Because, I mean, I do know of him. A lot of the rap, I'm kind of stuck in like the 80s and 90s, a lot of 90s stuff. I'm one of those people who doesn't really like new rap. Because I think a lot of it is garbage. Now I'm starting to sound old. That's all I was saying. I was surprised that I even liked 21 Savage or Future, But some of it was alright. I like guys who are lyrical more than, just, rapping about the same stuff all the time. Jimmy G says, will this focus on power running really matter against the Ohio State University if Peters can't hit play action shots downfield? We'll have to see, Jimmy. I mean, and let's not forget, Ohio State's got a pretty good defense, pretty good defensive line too, so. Demario Vaughn says, imagine how good Devin Bush and Kalik will be next year after a full season under their belt. Yeah, if you guys want to talk about Kalik Hudson, I wanted to bring up, Jabril had, 16 and a half tackles for loss last year? Kalik had, 9 in one game. And I don't like comparing guys, but, in terms of production, if you ask me who's played the Viper position better, just the Viper position. Because Jabril was valuable in other roles, but who's played the Viper position better? I would say it's Kalik Hudson. Without even blinking. If you compare play for play last year with Jabril, and I think play for play this year with Kalik Hudson, I would argue that Kalik Hudson's made bigger plays. He's made more impactful plays at the Viper position. And we've all been talking about Kalik for a long time, right? Kalik, there's no doubt in my mind that Kalik is, one of the most talented athletes on that team, and that's why he's playing the Viper position. So, he could have, Jim Harbaugh was saying, maybe he adds a block punt or two to that resume. He had, I've seen a couple differ by half and stuff, but 9 tackles for loss or 8.5 tackles for loss, whatever you want to say. National Defensive Player of the Week. ESPN stats say 13 total tackles, 11 solos, 2 assisted tackles, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble. Kalik is the real deal. Jimmy G says that Chris Hawk downfield shots to someone like DPJ to blow the top off of defense. Demario Vaughn says Ian Bunning really fell off, I feel like. I don't know what's going on with Ian. and it is kind of surprising. It is. Like I said in the beginning, I didn't think the Zach Gentry, and I remember in the interviews on my YouTube channel, guys, just please like, subscribe. Gotten a bunch of new subscribers in the past couple days, so thanks to everybody. If you're a new subscriber, thanks for watching and subscribing. But I even mentioned it to Zach. I was like, no offense, but it's not like I didn't really picture you having, playing a big role in the offense. And he kind of, he smiled and laughed it off a little bit. He worked hard. But yeah, I mean, Ian Bunting, everybody, I mean, it was, people were looking at it. It was going to be Tyrone Wheatley, Ian Bunting, and then, whoever else. But Tyrone and Ian were going to be the top two. And then, let Sean McCune and Zach Gentry fight it out for the third spot. But, I mean, it's been opposite. It's been Zach Gentry, or Sean McCune, rather, Zach Gentry, Tyrone Wheatley, and then Ian Bunting. John Kamani says, let's not look past Maryland. Going to be an important game to win and have everyone healthy for and have everything. I can't read today. And have everyone healthy for Wisconsin. Go blue all the way from Denver, Colorado. Hey John, thanks for watching. Yeah, Michigan isn't. You can't look past that. You can't look past any team at this point, right? Rutgers has won 3 of 4, and I'm not saying people who've lost to Rutgers have looked past Rutgers, but I look past Rutgers. I can't imagine. A lot of these Rutgers is not a good football team, but they're winning some games this year, which is crazy, and it shows. It goes to show you in college football, really, it's that day, man. It's that day. Anybody can it's so cliche. The team that wants it more that day is going to win it. That's the bottom line. And Rutgers, 3 of the 4 past games, has wanted it more than the opposition. Demario Vaughn says, I think McCaffrey will push Brandon next year too. I think so too. If I'm gonna tab the next star quarterback at Michigan, Dillon's the guy that I'm hitching my wagon to. Parth Patel says, I wouldn't let Spate transfer. I feel like we'll need him next year to compete with Peters. Yeah, Parth, I don't think Wilton, and again, this is just my speculation. I thought if he had a big year this year that he would go. But obviously with the injury, I'm not sure how that's going to, if he comes in and plays well, just in theory, let's say he plays Wisconsin, Ohio State, and plays in the bowl game and does well, is that enough for him to go? I don't know. Frank Lucas says, watch out for Joe Milton, big arm. Yeah, Joe Milton's got the arm out of all these guys. Adam Lang says, hey Adam, do you think there's a quarterback competition between Peters and Spate if Wilton returns, and who do you think would win that battle? Adam, I've always said it's been Wilton's job to lose. It will be Wilton's job for as long as he's at Michigan. And I said this last year, and I said this earlier, this year too. But you can't predict a neck injury. So it's all going to depend on how he comes back from this neck injury, and if we see, and we didn't see the Wilton, when he was healthy this year that we saw through the first 9 games last year. So there's a lot of ifs with Wilton Spate, but I do believe that he's got the ability. I do believe that he is, when healthy, the best quarterback that Michigan has. And Jim Harbaugh made a comment Monday saying that, he's strong, he's young, he's healing fast. He's even surprised doctors at how fast that he's healed. So, I would not discount Wilton Spate in the least bit. I wouldn't bet against him returning this year. And I guess right now, I don't know what to say if he comes back next year, but it'd be something where, I wouldn't bet against that either. There's a lot of ifs right now with Wilton Spate's career. Not only at Michigan, but I think, if there is a destination beyond Michigan, whether it's transfer or whether he does enter the NFL draft. There are a lot of ifs. Chris Hawk says, I love the thought of Spate being a solid backup next season and push Peters and McCaffrey. Demario Vaughn says, imagine if Spate transferred to Ohio State. Jimmy G. Adam, which coach is more responsible for the O-line's improvement, Fry or Drevno, and who will be more valuable going against Wisconsin and Ohio State? Jimmy, that's a loaded question, man. And what do you mean, who will be more important, Fry or Drevno? It's impossible for me to tell you really, anything other than, I don't know. Who's more responsible? Greg Fryer, Tim Drevno? I don't know. I mean, I think that the players are just getting it. I think that the players are executing. We talked about this a lot earlier in the year. Not you and I, but just people watching the show, wanting to blame the coaching staff a lot. And I said, well, I use this analogy. So what if I took you out and I showed you, using baseball, how to field a ground ball properly? You do it so well in practice. You do it better than everybody else is doing it in practice. So you start on Saturday, but you're not getting it done on Saturday. Is that poor coaching or is that poor execution? Because prior to game day, you were preparing, you were doing it great, in practice. But yeah, part of it is production on game day too. So, but I think my point was, I think a lot of this was just more on the players. I think it's execution. I think it's the little things like I mentioned earlier. Steven Spinellis and guys like Cesar Ruiz, Patrick Kugler were mentioning all those little things. Going through your block instead of 5 seconds, go through it for 6 seconds. That sort of thing. And that's been the difference. Those little fractions have been the difference between being perceived as a struggling offensive line to now cleaned up and an improved offensive line. Chris Hawk says, got to roll Adam, will be listening but can't participate. Go Blue. Hey Chris, I appreciate it. Ryan Kaufman says, put in Malzone. He got a snap. Let him eat. Ryan Kaufman says. Frank Lucas says, Michael, I'm tripping. Guess I can't believe Northwestern made it over Michigan, Frank says. Michael Allen, would you like to see a trick play with Gentry throwing a touchdown pass against Ohio State? We're going to need to think outside the box to win that game. And Michael, wouldn't he be a guy that you'd look at as a main candidate? Zach was a quarterback when he got to Michigan. He was actually pretty decently rated pro-style quarterback. I think he was the best quarterback in the state of New Mexico. Best recruit, if I'm not mistaken. One of the better recruits. So, and wouldn't it be funny if it was to Steven Spinellis? Because Steven Spinellis has actually played tight end before. He was talking about that. So, and that's versatility. I mean, I don't know if Steven's ever going to double as a tight end, but I mean, he's served as an extra offensive lineman, and that's what the number change is doing, make him eligible. Dwayne Hill says, do you know when Eubanks and Tariq Black are projected to return? I do not, Dwayne. Grant Perry, Kakoa Crawford, and Tyrone Wheatley, good chance that they'll be back this weekend. Jim Harbaugh said on Monday, so that's all I have as far as and Mike Onwenu. As far as Tariq Black and Nick Eubanks, I do not have anything on them. I mean, Tariq, probably was going to miss the season. I'd be surprised for him to come back at any point, maybe the bowl game. Ryan Kaufman says, Evans or Higdon in the long run. I like them both, and I don't really. Sometimes I do entertain trolls on Twitter a little. I don't get too much, but there are a couple, and they're really relentless, and they just come with like the worst arguments. So, the cynic in me is like, get them, so I do it. And this guy was tweeting about just Chris Evans was garbage. Was not a potential star. Was citing he would tweet me every game. Chris Evans had 5 carries for 29 yards. And I'm like, yeah, Andy had a 20-yard touchdown. I remember that was, I think it was a Rutgers game. And he, kind of trying to rib on me a little bit. Because Chris had a really good game against Purdue. Anyway, Chris Evans is a potential star. You don't run for 191 yards if you're not. You don't. Chris Evans has done such a better job of breaking tackles and yards after contact. Not the same type of yards after contact as Karan Higdon, because Chris will just bounce off the tackle and go. Karan Higdon will carry a couple guys and grind for those extra 5-6 yards. When they think they got him stopped for 4 or 3 or 4, it's actually like a 9-yard gain. So that's the difference with those guys. I like them both. I mean, you're asking me to. It'd be like asking me to choose between my two favorite foods. I mean, I couldn't do it, man. I need them both. I think I missed a couple here. Has Higdon reached 1,000 yards yet? Career yards, he's at like 8, just cracked 800 for the season, though, Frank. Adam Lang says Ruiz had a good game Saturday. Is he a lock for the starting center next year? He would be the guy I look at. Yeah, Adam. To say a lock, I don't know, but he's the guy that I look at. CJ All right, CJ, I might struggle with this one, but I'm going to try to get it right. Oh, man, I'm just going to call you CJ O for right now, if that's okay. CJ Anyekuru. I think we have the blueprint to beat Ohio State this year. It took me longer to read your name or pronounce your name than it did for me to read the comment. Did I pronounce that right? I don't know, CJ. I mean, Michigan's beaten Ohio State 3 times since 2000. I mean, history to me, until proven otherwise. I mean, I'm not super confident if this is good, especially if it's a shootout type of game. I don't think Michigan has the offense to go shootout mode with Ohio State. Ohio State could score some points. DeMario says, I really thought Chris Evans would have been the main back this year. Cron has been great, though. Yeah, DeMario, Chris was tabbed at number 1 going into camp. I thought that Chris had the potential to be a 1,000-yard rusher. And as it turns out, it's Cron. Maybe maybe I didn't think outside the box of centering on one guy too much. Maybe we should have talked about more. Is there a potential for a 1,000-yard rusher in Michigan's backfield rather than Chris? But I cited Chris because he rushed for 600 as a true freshman, averaged 7 yards per carry. Just the writing on the wall was there, I guess, so to speak. And I think it's not a surprise, though, that Karan has emerged as the number 1 back. Because I think Karan gives the best of both worlds. With Chris, he's not the type of contact runner that Karan. Chris is more of a finesse guy. Chris can break some tackles. And that, using the finesse, he could get out. But with Karan will just bowl you over. I mean, we saw Karan knocked over Cesar Ruiz to get out, in the name of gaining some yards. And if he's 5'9", 5'10", 190 pounds, and I'm telling you, he's compact. I would not want to be a guy trying to tackle him. It's low center of gravity, incredible strength, and he's got some speed. I mean, I think he ran, it was like a 4.5, 4.40, something like that, 4.5. Michael Allen says, realistic prediction for our record in the last 3 games. I hope 2-1, but 1-2 would be a huge letdown. Well, Michael, I've said all along a 9-3 or 8-4 season was pretty likely, and I chalked up loss at Ohio State was always a loss in my mind. I thought Michigan would beat Michigan State. I thought that Michigan would be undefeated going into Penn State, but probably lose that game. So 1-2, 2-1. It's one or the other, isn't it? It's not. I don't think it's going to be 0-3. Dwayne Hill says, what do you think about next season with Joe Milton coming in? I think Michigan's going to have some depth at quarterback. Peters, Milton, McCaffrey. Jeremy Turner says, and to think I said put Chris Evans at slot receiver. I mean, that's still not a bad idea, Jeremy. And that's the thing. I mean, making one-game judgments on a guy, I've always strayed away from doing that. No, you can absolutely use Chris Evans as a slot receiver and a running back. Chris is athletic enough, I think, to give the offense a punch. I mean, he's that guy. Let Karan be the featured back, gain all the tough yards. Let Chris be the guy, in space. Let Chris be maybe a guy on a toss, that kind of stuff. Karan's an off-tackle guy, Karan's a sweep guy. Or vice versa. I mean, Chris Evans, basically anything to get Chris Evans to the edge, I think, let's just put it that way. Anything that gets Chris Evans to the edge, do that. Whether he's a running back or a slot receiver, or give him some space as a slot, like on bubble screen. Anything to isolate, give him some space, or get him to the edge. And Chris Evans is going to do his thing. And we saw that. We've seen that. CJ, I'm sorry, man. He's giving me the real teethy smile emoji, squinted eyes. I'm sorry, CJ, I butchered it. I'm going to try. Anyekuru. Did I get it? That has to be it. Demario Vaughn says, I would love to see Michigan with a huge back like Bo Scarborough. Demario Vaughn says, oh yeah, I forgot about Ty Isaac. Parth Patel says that opener next year is going to be killer. We're going on 35 minutes, guys. Any other questions? I'm going to check Twitter real quick. Oh, Salim Siddiqui, I just checked on here. Will Michigan beat Wisconsin and Ohio State? Will they continue their lack of success versus ranked opponents? Salim, to answer your question, I don't think Michigan. I mean, I don't think Michigan beats either. I think it has a better chance of beating Wisconsin, but I don't think Michigan beats Ohio State. And I did see a tweet, Salim, and a stat that Mark D'Antonio has more wins over ranked opponents in the past week or 30 days than Jim Harbaugh has in his career, something like that. I mean, it's crazy. Michigan needs to win some big games. That's for certain. Wisconsin will be a huge game. Ohio State will be a huge game. I mean, to go 0-2 in those games would be a major disappointment for the Wolverines. I do think matchup wise, that'd probably be better, especially if you look at if you're going to go toe for toe on the ground. Brian Higdon's that type of back. I think that'll be able to do that for you. And throw in Chris Evans. I got it, CJ. All right, thanks. Anya Kuru. Ryan Kaufman says, we will beat Notre Dame. Frank Lucas, who does Michigan basketball play for the first game? Frank, you're going to make me Google this. I don't even know. Michael Allen says, I'm not even thinking about basketball right now. A little bit. I want to talk about position previews for Michigan and Michigan State. I'll probably write a little bit about that this week. I'm going to stop being lazy and I'll get something up about Michigan's offensive line. It's a lot of what we talked about today, but it'll have, quotes from players and, specific examples and stuff like that once I sit down and type it out. So write it out. Michael Allen says Wisconsin is ranked and on the road, so mark it as an L based off the past decade, Michael Allen says. Parth Patel, who you got for Duke, Michigan State? Coach K. As great as Tom Izzo, Michigan State, great basketball program. Coach K has pretty much owned Izzo. I think 99 Final Four, Michigan State beat him. I'd have to look up Izzo's record against Coach K. But right now, off the top of my head, I'm just gonna say it's Michigan. It's gonna be Duke over Michigan State. Frank Lucas says, doesn't Michigan basketball play in 3 days? Yeah, like 2 days. I got some homework to do. Like I said, with this the unforeseen position cut at FanRag, and then I haven't been able to use all my attention focusing on this stuff. I've had to put my attention toward looking elsewhere, getting things in order. So it's been a weird week for me. I'll be fully immersed in basketball, but when it's tough for me football season to get fully immersed in basketball season. I like to finish football, just being in depth as possible as I can about that, and then by the time football is over, then college basketball is really starting to get interesting anyway. At least it catches my attention. And then with Big Ten games, starting a little bit earlier, Big Ten season getting underway, it's a little added incentive, I think. So, Michael Allen says Charles Matthews looks like he's real. Yeah, he is a huge addition to Michigan, and I think Charles is going to add scoring. The experience factor. Guys were saying last year he was invaluable on the scout team. Check out, I have a couple videos, Michigan basketball videos from recent availabilities and media days. So check those out on my YouTube channel. Please like, subscribe, and share. Any other questions, guys? We're going on 39 minutes. Could wrap it up. This seems about average for us. Michael Allen says he's better Zach Irvin. I think they're... Zach, was about 6'6", 215, 220-ish. Zach, I think they're a little bit different player. But I think Charles Matthews will be asked to do what Zach provided. I can see that. And more. Who's the starting point guard? Where, Frank? At Michigan or Michigan State? At Michigan, it's 3-man battle. Dron Simmons, Eli Brooks, Xavier Simpson. Also, is this a breakout year for Mo Wagner? Absolutely. It's like the number 31 ranked player in college basketball, I think. Michael Allen says Simpson as of right now. Well, I mean, John Beeline said it was like, I have a quarterback controversy. He said he's got a three-way tie, and I think that was a reference to Jim Harbaugh earlier in the season, or just a football reference in general. But three-man tie. So Beeline's got a three-man tie at point guard, just like Harbaugh had a three-man tie at quarterback. And Harbaugh's three-man tie, I don't think, was ever really a three-man tie. I don't know if that's the case with John Beeline. I think Beeline really does have a three-man tie, honestly. Michigan may have two first rounders in their front court. Jeremy Turner says, "I'm telling college basketball will be great this year." Yeah, if you're a Michigan fan, there's a lot to look forward to. I think Michigan's going to be a good team. I was saying that last year, even when a slow start in January and people were like, "Fire John Beeline," and I laughed that off. I mean, that was incredible. I mean, fire John Beeline. There are actually people this year, crying about Harbaugh, and it's like, wow, it just surprised me. And then I wrote about it. This is a team that is built to succeed. This is a tournament. This is a team that's built to succeed in a tournament. And what happened? Michigan went and won the Big Ten tournament, had a successful postseason, Sweet 16 run. CJ Anyekuru says Mo Wagner will have a big year. Yes, he will. Adam Lang says breakout year for football this year in your eyes. I mean, this season's almost over. Or is it for what do you mean, Adam? Or next year? Jeremy Turner says state of Michigan. Yeah, absolutely. The state of Michigan in general. I mean, if you like college basketball, this is. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I mean, if you're a college sports fan, I mean, we have four of the premier. I mean, and when Red Barrington was at, Michigan hockey, once upon a time, Ron Mason and Rick Conley at Michigan State. But, I mean, look at all the great college coaches that we've had in Michigan. Right now, just if you look at Michigan State, basketball, football, what's not like to like? What's not to like? You have four of the best coaches right here, 63 miles. Separated by 63 miles, Ann Arbor and East Lansing. So, absolutely going to be a big year. It's Michigan State and everybody else in the Big Ten, though. I really do believe that. Frank Lucas says John B. did something special last year. Yeah, he did. Oh, Adam Lang, who has been my breakout player this year? Well, I thought Cleek Hudson was going to be really important this year. I thought Devin Bush. So those are two guys that I was right on. Here's one guy that I was wrong on, though, that I thought would have a breakout year, and I thought it was Lawrence Marshall on the defensive line was going to have a breakout year. So I was wrong about Lawrence. Michael Allen says, schedule is so tough for Michigan in non-conference. We'll see how good they are right now. Right away. Yeah, and Beeline does the same thing Izzo does. They want to line up best competition, and you look at the ACC Big Ten Challenge, those sort of things. I mean, the Maui tournaments. I mean, that's what you get a true gauge. Frank Lucas, do I think Mo Hurst is a top 10 pick? I think he's a top 15 pick. And maybe I'm splitting hairs on 10 through 15, but I think it's safe. I think top 10, then you're locked down. Top 15, a little bit safer. So I'm going to opt for that. Top 10, I don't think he's... I mean, I think he's one of the best defensive linemen in college football. No doubt about that. He is, no doubt, a first-round pick, top 15 pick. I think that's ironclad. We'll see how he finishes the year. He could play himself in the top 10, I'll say that. Michael Allen says, as a Packer fan, I'll take Hurst. We need a pass rush. LMAO. Packers, Jake Ryan over there, and the weather, get used to that. I think that's an advantage for a lot of guys too. And not to get off topic, but a lot of guys, if you do play in the Big Ten and you end up in the NFL, what if you get drafted by an NFC team, NFC North team in particular? You're going to be playing in this type of weather. Get used to it. You're not gonna end up, you might not end up in a warm weather state. Get used to playing football in these type of conditions. I think it benefits. And Green Bay, if you could play in the cold, and if you could go and play in Green Bay, you're a tough dude. Frank Lucas, who's your favorite NFL team? I grew up a Lions fan, then Barry Sanders broke my heart. My dad lived in Indianapolis, so the Colts are actually. So I'm a Colts/Lions fan. Lions because of the hometown thing. Barry Sanders was my absolute favorite football player as a kid. I wrote like a little book on him in third grade for a project, and I ended up losing it, but I do remember that I made the cover out of wallpaper. So I think I told this story before. But yeah, Barry Sanders, real big Barry Sanders fan. I like Johnny Morton too. Back in my Lions super fandom days. But I always liked Edgerrin James of the Colts, and I went to some Colts games with my dad. So gotta go. Thanks for the stream, Adam, says Frank Lucas. All right, Frank, I appreciate you guys watching. I think too. I mean, we're going on 40. We're just passing 46 minutes, guys. So I think I'm going to end it. Herman Moore was a beast. Tino, I have some Herman Moore stories, guys. If you want me to tell them, remind me on the next podcast. I have some Herman Moore stories. Michael Allen says Indiana represent. Yeah, Michael. Actually, I lived down there with my dad. I went to for a year. I went to Broad Ripple High School in Indianapolis. So went to some Pacers. Never became a Pacers fan though. I was always a Pistons fan. That was never going to change, ever. But the Lions. I guess I was never as much into the NFL as I was other things. So. Oh yeah, Lafayette. I've never been there. Never been. Jimmy Turner says, thanks, Adam. Keep it up. Hey, guys, thanks for watching. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at AdamBiggers81. Until I find a next destination, you can find all my written content at adambiggersblog.wordpress.com. Or just Google Adam Biggers, the free agent blog. There's a link on my Twitter bio as well. I want to thank Tim and Keith at Mr. Spots in Ann Arbor, 808 State Street in Ann Arbor. We'll do another... MrSpotsAnnArbor.com. We'll do another sandwich giveaway for the Ohio State game, closest or dead on. The first one, score prediction, you'll get a half steak or a half chicken on the house, courtesy of Tim and Keith at Mr. Spots. So appreciate their support. And again, guys, I thank you for everybody watching, getting some new subscribers lately, the views and everything. They're all there. Really likes, shares, subscriptions, all that stuff. Search Sports in the Mitten on Facebook too. I'll post a lot of stuff on there as well. So I'm going to call it a day. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.